Okay, let's just dive right into a thought experiment that will literally turn your modern life completely upside down. In this explainer, we're going to explore a scenario that is honestly just as fascinating as it is absolutely terrifying. I mean, imagine this. One second, you're part of the most connected civilization in human history, and the next, everything you know, everything you trust and rely on has just vanished. We're going to unpack exactly what it would take to survive if your reality was suddenly wiped away. Seriously, imagine opening your eyes to a terrifyingly different world, completely stripped of every single comfort you depend on. Sure, the sky might look the same, but absolutely nothing else is. And look, we aren't talking about going back a decade or two to the 90s. We are talking about going back exactly 400 years. The year is 1626. And the harsh reality we need to establish right out of the gate is that the past, it is not waiting to welcome you with open arms. It's waiting to test you. So ask yourself, could you actually survive it? So let's start with Section 1, waking up in 1626. And the first thing you'd experience, the sensory shock. The reality of this transition isn't just some conceptual idea, it is intensely, violently physical. Think about it. Your brain instinctively reaches for your smartphone, expecting that familiar glow of an electric screen and climate-controlled, clean air. But instead, you're met with a heavy, cold silence. Your heart is just racing as you realize you're lying on a rough straw mattress on a freezing, hard stone floor. And the smell, the sour scent of a world without modern sanitation hits you instantly. It's this thick, overwhelming mixture of wood smoke, damp rot, unwashed sweat, and dirt. It is an immediate, physical panic. And as you process that smell and the biting cold, the reality of what's missing really starts to set in. No electricity, no cars, no phones. You can entirely forget about packaged food or dialing 911 for emergency services. Every single shortcut your modern brain uses to get through the day is just gone. You've been dropped into an era where our modern complaints would sound like absolute punchlines. I mean, getting annoyed at a low phone battery today is one thing, right? In 1626, a simple splinter could literally lead to a deadly infection, because antibiotics are centuries away from even being a thought. A minor mistake doesn't just ruin your day here, it ends your life. Which brings us to Section 2, the threat of people. And here, you are guilty until proven innocent. You know, you might think starvation or a disease is your biggest immediate danger, but actually, it's the locals, which completely flips our modern expectations on their head. You're stepping into a world locked in the massive paranoia of the 30 Years' War, where you are basically guilty by default. There's a golden rule for this era. The fastest way to die in the past is to act like you belong to the future. You have no passport, no embassy to call, no digital footprint to prove you even exist. Strangers in the 1600s are definitely not automatically trusted. Any weird clothes, odd posture, unusual speech, or modern habits that'll immediately mark you as a vagrant, a thief, or a flawed-out threat. If the local authorities decide you're suspicious, you could be imprisoned or worse, and they have zero reason to protect you. So your survival depends entirely on what we can call the humility protocol. First, you must immediately lower your voice and avoid showing off or arguing at all costs. Just don't do it. Second, you have to meticulously observe everything around you, how people bow, how they eat, how they pray, before you make a single move. Your initial goal, become practically invisible just to stay safe. And eventually, you have to become useful enough to be kept around. You gotta blend in completely seamlessly before the community decides you're a problem that requires a permanent solution. All right, so let's say you blend in. Now we're in Section 3, Surviving Daily Life. And this is the practical minefield. Assuming you pass that first brutal test of chest fitting in, welcome to the everyday nightmare of the 17th century. Today, we take guaranteed safe drinking water and private hygiene completely for granted. But in your new reality, food is strictly seasonal, it's scarce, and often heavily contaminated by today's standards. A stomach raised on pasteurized, processed modern food might violently reject even the simplest meal in 1626. Bathing isn't just turning a hot water knob, and toilets certainly aren't private. And without any concept of germ theory whatsoever, the sanitation situation is public, gross, and highly dangerous. Like we said earlier, a simple toothache or a mild fever could so easily become a terrifying death sentence. Which kind of leads us to a fascinating question, right? How do you even explain a smartphone or a zipper or electricity to someone in 1666? Well, the simple answer is you can't. And honestly, you shouldn't even try. Standing out too much or casually dropping knowledge about the next 4 centuries invites immediate, life-threatening danger. You have to remember, in 1626, superstition wasn't just spooky stories for entertainment, it was absolute law. The European witch trials were at their terrifying peak during this time. People explained the world using beliefs that you know for a fact are scientifically ridiculous, but to them, they were literal life and death truths. Pulling out a dead smartphone, having a strangely manufactured plastic pen, or making some uncanny historical prediction wouldn't make you a revered genius. No, it would get you labeled a witch, a heretic, or a spy. To survive, you have to become an absolute master of silence, timing, and total restraint. This brings us to Section 4. Knowledge is currency. But be careful, because it's also the trap of the future. So this is where your modern mind becomes your most powerful advantage, and simultaneously, your biggest liability. Look, you cannot compete with the locals in wealth, armor, or weaponry. You just can't. You have to compete in usefulness. Valuable, highly practical skills like basic arithmetic, the concept of boiling water for hygiene, or organizing better crop storage. Those are your absolute tickets to safety. People will feed you and shelter you because you solve everyday problems. But introducing dangerous future knowledge, like trying to invent electricity or talking about advanced mechanics, that's just going to draw the exact wrong kind of attention. You have to earn your place, one careful, quiet step at a time. But here is the massive trap waiting for you. Your historical knowledge is dangerously incomplete. Sure, you might know the broad strokes of the 1600s from textbooks or movies, but you definitely don't know the hyper-specific local politics, the weird regional tensions, or, who the local magistrate hates. One wrong assumption or accidentally praising the wrong royal or religious figure could send you straight into a dungeon, a famine, or right into the middle of a war zone. Exploiting foreknowledge is just chaotic. The reality is, the more you know, the more you have to hide. And that leads to Section 5, the ultimate threat: time and isolation. If you somehow manage to navigate the disease, the wild superstition, and the volatile politics, you still have to face the emotional toll. And this is the part nobody truly prepares for in these thought experiments. You wouldn't just be homesick. The isolation would be a physical aching weight. You'd miss your family, your friends, and just the simple ability to ask the internet a question and get an answer in 2 seconds. But even deeper than that, you'd be entirely dislocated from the emotional structure of your age. You'd be trapped in a world where sudden death is incredibly common, and grief is just handled entirely differently than what you're used to. 400. That is the exact number of years separating you from your home. And the absolute harshest truth of all is that the world does not pause for your confusion. Seasons are still going to change, crops will fail, kings will die, and plagues will appear. You aren't just surviving a single bad day or a rough weekend camping trip. You are trying to survive an entire brutal era that can and will swallow a person without a trace. Yet, amidst all this crushing hardship, you would probably experience moments of profound wonder. You'd see stars with a crisp clarity that modern light-polluted cities have completely erased. You'd hear a deep, true, unmechanized silence. You'd watch craftsmen shape metal and wood with just incredible patience. You would realize that humanity didn't begin with machines. It began with hands, sweat, memory, and sheer endurance. The people of 1626 weren't less intelligent than us. They were fiercely alive, intensely human, and deeply, deeply capable of surviving a harsh environment. Ultimately, your fate wouldn't come down to just luck or your fancy modern education. It would come down to caution, immense adaptability, and pure nerve. You'd have to accept that your old life is gone and meticulously build a believable new one. Which leaves us with this terrifying final question as the modern future you once knew fades away. Can you survive long enough in the past to become part of it without losing yourself forever? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll see you in the next one.